Hey guys, tonight we journey back to ancient Rome. Not the sun-baked, toga-twirling version you're used to, but a quieter, frostier one. Imagine marble streets glistening with frost, cold breath curling into the air, and sandals clacking against icy stone. You're not strolling through a summer forum. You're tiptoeing through a city that's just starting to feel winter's bite. And honestly, you probably won't survive this, unless you really like wool. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink awake in a cramped room lit only by the sliver of morning sun peeking under a wooden shutter. There's no glass, just cold air sneaking in through the cracks. You're curled up on a low cot, wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket that smells faintly of oil and smoke. Not unpleasant, just lived in. Outside, a soft clink-clink echoes down the street. You press your face to the shutter, breath fogging the wood. There it is, the shamefully loud vegetable cart. It's not the produce that's jarring. It's the tiny bronze bells tied to its frame, meant to warn pedestrians that a cabbage avalanche might be imminent. The cart creaks forward, trailed by a sleepy ox and an even sleepier vendor muttering in Latin about frozen radishes. His breath puffs out in white clouds as he slaps his gloved hands together and curses, gently, at the cold. Behind him, small plumes of steam rise from manhole-sized vents in the street. The Roman underfloor heating system, hypocaust, works best in villas and bathhouses, but every now and then, one surprises you with a puff of subterranean warmth. Your street, narrow, cracked, and crowded, is part of a working-class neighborhood just off the Aventine Hill. Terracotta rooftops glisten with early frost, and pigeons shuffle around like feathered drunks, trying to find a warm windowsill. The only sign of life is a baker's boy darting past with a tray of flatbreads under one arm, the other hand stuffed in his tunic for warmth. You finally stand, bones creaking in complaint. No central heating here. Your tunic is a little damp from last night's dew, and your sandals are stiff from the cold. You stuff a wad of wool into them before sliding them on, an old trick borrowed from shepherds in the hills. Doesn't make you fashionable, but it keeps your toes attached. Outside, the city murmurs. Not roars, just murmurs. Rome in winter is slower, its corners quieter. The fountains still bubble, some half-frozen, but fewer linger by them. Market stalls are fewer, but the smells, roasted nuts, mulled wine, goat stew, are stronger, thicker, more urgent in the cold. You pass a tall apartment block, an insula, where a family huddles near an open brazier, smoke curling out the window. One child holds a wooden doll close to the fire, like she's warming it before bed. Someone sneezes from above and a cloth bundle drops to the street below, probably laundry now frozen mid-flap. And then the crows. Oh, the crows. Historians still argue whether Roman crows were seen as omens or just freeloading sky thugs. But on winter mornings, they dominate the rooftops. Loud, opinionated, and very interested in your bread. One stares directly at you from a rooftop cornice, its head cocked. You nod. It blinks. Truce. You stop at a small corner altar, one of hundreds scattered around the city. A bronze lamp flickers weakly beside a clay figurine of a household god. Someone's left an offering, a shriveled fig and half a walnut, both dusted with frost. You light a stick of incense from the guttering flame. You whisper a small hope, warmth, or at least less wind today. Around the next corner, an old woman is scraping ice from a fountain's edge with a piece of broken amphora. "For my joints," she says when she sees your curious glance. Cold water on cold hands makes them remember they're alive. You try not to shiver in response. Every street has its characters. That woman, the boy who mimics senators behind their backs, the one-armed veteran who tells increasingly elaborate tales about how he lost it. Last week it involved a bear and Cicero. But winter makes even them quieter. You notice fewer stray cats, fewer gossip circles, and definitely fewer late-night musicians tuning broken lyres outside taverns. The cold has crept into everything. But still, the city stirs. Life moves. Even in chilled sandals under gray skies, Rome doesn't freeze, it hums. Softly, slowly, sometimes sourly, but always. And as you step into the fuller morning, your breath still curling in front of you, your tunic only slightly less stiff, you brace yourself for what the day holds. Hopefully not a turnip cart to the ankle. You continue your stroll through the crisp Roman morning, the soles of your sandals finally warming up, just a bit, from the friction of walking. A dog trots past you, a wiry little thing with patches of fur missing and the suspicious confidence of an alley brawler. He's wearing a sort of cape, someone's old tunic sleeve tied around his neck. You nod respectfully. Fashion is fashion. As you turn onto a wider avenue, you spot a mother wrangling her 3 children outside a small domus. She's mid-scold, pulling a woolen cap over the youngest's reluctant head. The boy, perhaps 5, looks personally insulted by winter. His scowl could curdle milk. Inside, the house glows with firelight and smells of warm barley porridge. You lean by the open doorway, taking in the familiar rituals of bundling up Roman style. Layers are everything here. Forget your Hollywood idea of Romans strutting around in white sheets all year. Cold mornings like this are all about wool. Lots of it. The father, still half asleep, groans as he pulls on a heavy tunic dyed in faded russet. Over it goes a cloak made from thick felt, goat wool judging by the coarseness, and he fastens it with a bronze fibula shaped like a fish. Functional, but also a subtle brag. That fish pin? Not cheap. The children shuffle around the hearth, each one clutching a little clay cup of watered wine, just warm enough to sip without burning their tongues. One of them has discovered the joy of placing their sandals on the brick ledge near the fire before wearing them. Ingenious. The room is full of tiny, practical hacks like that. Warm bricks inside bedding rolls. Olive oil rubbed on the feet before wrapping them in cloth. Even a hollowed-out loaf of bread used briefly as a hand warmer. Don't ask. In the corner, a grandmother sits beside a brazier of gently glowing coals, threading wool into thicker yarn. She hums something low and ancient, probably a lullaby or a prayer to household spirits. Her cloak is trimmed with mouse fur, of all things. Not luxurious exactly, but warm if you don't mind the squeaky origins. The family's slave, a boy maybe 14, is carefully lighting pine cones soaked in fat to start the day's cooking fire. He sneezes, wipes his nose on his sleeve, and keeps going. The kitchen ceiling is already peppered with soot. But nobody minds. In Rome, heat outranks hygiene. You notice the walls of the house are hung with thick woven tapestries. Not for show, but to keep the wind from sneaking through the cracks in the plaster. One shows a goat leaping over a barrel, possibly symbolic, possibly just decorative. Another depicts a small scene of Mars, god of war, huddling next to a campfire with a furrowed brow. It's both devotional and relatable. Outside, the father steps into the street, cloak pulled tight, hands tucked under his armpits like cold pigeons. His breath fogs the air as he joins a few neighbors on the walk down toward the baths. A winter bath is a whole thing unto itself, but first, he's got to make it there without slipping on an icy lettuce leaf. As he walks, you overhear him grumble. They say this winter's no worse than last year, but I swear my knees disagree. Historians still argue whether Roman winters were significantly colder than today's. Climate cycles, sunspots, volcanic ash in the sky. But Roman knees? They always say the same thing. Too cold, too soon, and too often. Back inside the house, the children are now arguing over who gets the warm brick next. The mother solves it by declaring it's now a shared temple offering to the god of not whining. Clever. Desperate, but clever. She adds another log to the fire and sighs, watching a few sparks swirl up toward the chimney flue. Smoke leaks into the room for a moment, mixing with the faint scent of beeswax from the candle on the shelf. She stirs the pot of barley again, then sprinkles in a handful of dried herbs, likely oregano or lovage, maybe something more obscure, possibly even silphium, that now extinct plant they once loved so much they ate it out of existence. You can't help but wonder what it tasted like. Historians do too. Some think it was garlicky. Others suspect fennel vibes. Nobody knows for sure. Back outside, Frost still clings to the cobblestones in shaded corners. You see someone slip, recover dramatically, and pretend they meant to jog. It's a time-honored maneuver. You spot an old man selling hot chestnuts from a little bronze pan balanced over a squat fire. He's missing 2 fingers but still flips the nuts with practiced skill. His dog, yes, another dog, is wrapped in a strip of carpet and asleep beside the fire. The man offers you a chestnut. You take it. It burns your tongue. You thank him anyway. A couple passes, arm in arm under a shared woolen shawl. The woman's breath comes out in soft bursts of laughter as she whispers something to the man. He responds with a dramatic shiver, then a mock faint. She smacks his shoulder with affection, which in Roman terms is practically a love poem. And as you turn back toward the warmth of your own rented room, you hear that grandmother's song again, floating faintly from a window like the scent of roasted garlic. It's a simple tune, full of the kind of quiet resilience you see all over the city. Because no matter the chill, no matter the damp, the Romans get up. They layer up. They make jokes about goat wool and pray the brazier doesn't die in the night. And in those small, smoky rooms, under woolen cloaks and firelight, they wait for the sun to return. You step out again just as the sun climbs a little higher, though sun might be generous. It's that weak, winter version that feels more decorative than functional. Still, it casts long, golden beams over the rooftops and makes the frost sparkle on the temple steps. You wander toward the forum, where life carries on whether your toes are frozen or not. Vendors are already barking prices, soldiers are pacing in tight formation drills, and a pair of toga-clad senators are attempting to look philosophical while shivering behind their curved leather sandals. Near the central fountain, a group of street performers are putting on a skit, despite the chill. One is dressed as Mercury, god of messages, complete with painted wings strapped to his shoes. His nose is red from the cold, and his breath puffs dramatically with every line he delivers. The crowd laughs politely. Someone tosses a coin. You take a seat on a stone bench, still cold from the night before, and glance toward the basilica, Rome's great law court. Outside its doors, people huddle under awnings, waiting to be judged, sued, or maybe just mildly scolded. They rub their hands together, stamp their feet, and sip weak wine from clay mugs. A clerk strides past with a wax tablet tucked under one arm and a robe that's just a little too short, revealing wool socks that clash terribly with his sandals. He notices you looking and lifts his chin with theatrical dignity. Fashion judgments, it seems, go both ways. Just behind the basilica, you spot something rarely discussed in tourist scrolls: Rome's fire watchtower. Not very tall, but manned even in the bitter cold by sleepy-eyed vigiles, Rome's semi-official firefighters and nighttime peacekeepers. One of them waves at you from a balcony, his breath fogging up the polished bronze of his helmet. They've been busy this winter. Cold means brazier fires, and brazier fires mean accidents. A spark here, a wobble there, and suddenly the bakery on the corner becomes a lesson in civic planning. The vigiles sleep in shifts inside chilly barracks, wrapped in cloaks stiff with soot. Their unofficial mascot? A one-eyed cat named Cinders, who nests in a helmet and hisses at everyone. You make your way toward the insulae, the massive apartment blocks where most Romans actually live. The poor live high up, nearer to the leaky roofs and icy drafts. The wealthier dwell lower down, closer to the warm smell of stew and the safety of a quick escape. Historians still argue whether these buildings were true architectural marvels or just glorified fire traps. Likely both. And in winter, every floor becomes a social experiment in survival. You duck into one of the inner courtyards and find a cluster of women gathered around a shared brazier, its iron belly glowing with coal. They're passing around roasted chickpeas and knitting wool socks in mismatched pairs. One woman wears 2 scarves, both clearly woven by a child, and she wears them like royal sashes. Above, laundry flaps limply in the breeze, mostly undergarments and wool wraps, some already stiff with ice. A bucket overflows where someone forgot to pour it out overnight. The icicle dripping from its edge is artistic. In a nearby stairwell, children are rolling pebbles down the steps, chasing them like racing turtles. One little boy wears 2 tunics and a wool cap that slips over his eyes every 3rd step. He doesn't care. It's warm. An older man calls down from a window, holding a steaming bowl of lentil stew and yelling that winter is a test of cleverness, before promptly spilling stew on his sleeve. You smile and keep walking. You pass a bakery with its oven door flung open. The scent of yeast and smoke wraps around you like a wool blanket. The baker, red-cheeked and humming, shovels loaves out onto a wooden tray and nods at your approving look. "It's the only reason I still have toes," he says. "I bake near the fire. I sleep near the fire. I dream about fire." You peek into the thermopolium next door, a sort of Roman takeout shop, where 2 women sip broth from clay cups, wrapped in layers of saffron and teal. A brazier smokes in the corner, and the cook flips something that might be sausage or might be a very optimistic figure. Hard to tell in this light. In one shadowed alley, a boy scrapes ice off the cobblestones with a flat stick, selling it to a perfumer who swears it keeps his oils balanced. You doubt the science but admire the hustle. Nearby, a couple of teenage boys are hawking pre-warmed stones to weary pedestrians. Little pebbles heated near a brazier and wrapped in linen, meant to be slipped into gloves or under tunics. You buy one. It burns your palm and you love it immediately. As you loop back toward the heart of the forum, the sun finally gains some courage, brushing the marble statues with soft gold. Pigeons flutter down, scavenging crumbs and chasing sunbeams. Someone set out a small bowl of wine-soaked bread for Fortuna, goddess of luck, and whether it's devotional or just a trick to catch birds, no one's sure. You pass a stooped man whispering into a fig tree. Not mad, just cold. Apparently, it listens better than people do. And overhead, through the soft haze of breath and smoke and sunlight, you hear the faint toll of bells from the Capitoline Hill. The same bells that woke you this morning. The same bells that tell you, even on Rome's coldest days, life clatters on noisily, cleverly, warmly, and somehow, always with just enough firelight to keep going. The bells fade, but their echoes linger in the alleyways as you wind your way up a narrow street, the kind so thin even a donkey would think twice. The sun's doing its best, but most of the lane is still in chilly shadow. You tug your cloak tighter and climb. The upper slope of the Aventine Hill is quieter. Less shouting, more murmuring. Wealthier families live here, behind stout wooden doors and tiled roofs that don't leak quite as much as the ones down by the Tiber. You pass one of those doors now, cracked open just wide enough to let out the warm smell of mulled wine and a brief, theatrical sigh from someone who's clearly annoyed about soup. A slave, young, freckled, wool cap tucked over his ears, rushes past you holding a pot of hot coals with tongs. He nods a greeting, nearly trips, then disappears into a villa with ivy crawling up its walls. Inside, you catch a glimpse of a mosaic floor, glowing faintly in the firelight. You're here for the view. Reaching a small terrace that overlooks the city, you pause. Rome stretches out below like a quilt stitched with rooftops, steam, and smoke. The Tiber curls through it like a sleepy silver snake. Beyond, the dome of the Pantheon catches the sunlight and flings it right back at the sky. But here's what you don't see: green. Not in winter. The trees are bony silhouettes. The gardens are hibernating. And even the gods painted on murals seem to have paler cheeks this time of year. You feel it too. A kind of hush, not sadness, just slowness. You sit on a low stone wall, fingers tucked into your sleeves, and watch a hawk circle lazily overhead. It catches a thermal and vanishes into a sky the color of old pewter. Down below, the city coughs and shifts and boils. You're not the only one drawn to the heights. A group of elderly philosophers sit on another terrace nearby, bundled in thick togas and sipping something dark from small cups. One is snoring softly, the others arguing about whether cold air clears the mind or merely makes the body miserable. Historians still argue this too. You pass them with a nod, resisting the urge to sneak a sip. A girl in a teal cloak walks by balancing a stack of scrolls taller than her entire torso. She stops to rest on a marble bench, mutters something about frostbitten fingers, and begins reading one aloud. Maybe to herself, maybe to you. It's a romantic tragedy. Of course it is. You move on, wandering the edge of a nearby public garden, which in warmer months would be full of flowers and bored senators. Today, it's mostly statues dusted with frost and a single cat stalking something invisible. The cat sees you, blinks slowly, and curls back into a coil of warm fur beside a brazier someone kindly left burning. There's a small fountain still trickling here, barely. Icicles frame its edges, and someone's tossed coins in frozen mid-wish. You peer into the water and see your breath fog the surface. You whisper something, nothing grand, just a quiet request that tomorrow be a little warmer. The gods aren't picky. On your way back down the hill, you pass a mural of Vulcan, god of fire, painted on the side of a bakery. Someone's placed a real iron hammer at his feet and garlanded it with garlic. Apparently, this works better than prayers alone when it comes to keeping ovens safe in winter. At the foot of the hill, you spot something peculiar. A line of citizens outside a small house marked with a faded red sign. It's the public hypocaust bathhouse, one of the smaller ones, tucked between a wine shop and a weaver's workshop. Inside, it's blessedly warm. The hypocaust system, a Roman marvel, works by heating the floor with flues and fires cleverly placed beneath the structure. You can feel the heat through your sandals the second you step in. Steam curls through the air, carrying with it the scent of olive oil, eucalyptus, and ambition. The room is full of people in various states of sweat and smugness. A trio of matrons gossip behind a curtain. Two teenage boys are daring each other to sit closer to the furnace. A merchant loudly explains that his bathhouse back in Ostia has hotter steam, but no one listens. One man stands near the heater fanning himself dramatically with a fig leaf. He is, in a word, unnecessary. You sit on a warm bench, close your eyes, and let the heat seep into your bones. Your toes tingle, your fingers twitch, your whole body begins to remember that warmth is possible. Outside, it's still winter, but in here, it's almost enough to make you believe summer might come back. You dip your hands into a bowl of warm water someone's left on a low table. It's just water, no magic, no oils, but it might as well be nectar from Olympus. Someone's brought in a tray of dates and pine nuts. You snag a date and chew it slowly. A woman nearby hums a lullaby, not to anyone in particular, just into the air. Her voice is soft and slightly off-key. Fits perfectly. You stay until the heat turns from delicious to dizzying, then step back out into the chill, cheeks flushed, cloak damp. The wind greets you like an old frenemy, but you're ready this time. You've been fortified. You're not done wandering. Not yet, but you might walk a little slower now, just to savor the steam still clinging to your skin. You step out of the bathhouse into a sky that's traded its silver morning sheen for a lazy winter blue. There's still no real warmth in it, but it feels friendlier now, as if Rome has accepted you're sticking around, so it might as well ease up on the frost. The street is livelier, too. Someone is playing a reed flute near the pottery stalls, and the sound weaves through the city like steam through bread crust. The flute player wears a wool tunic dyed saffron, a risky color this time of year. It shows every splash of mud. He plays anyway, eyes closed, tapping his foot on a flat stone that's been warmed by the sun. You follow the music a little ways, then detour toward the food stalls. Because nothing says, thriving despite winter quite like second breakfast. At the corner near the Temple of Ceres, a man sells honeyed barley cakes from a brazier lined with terracotta. The cakes sizzle when flipped, and the steam that rises is sweet, nutty, and just a little desperate. You buy one with a copper coin and bite in. The slightly burnt, possibly yesterday's, absolutely perfect. The baker gives you a look that says, yes, it's dry, but it's dry with dignity, and you nod in respect. Not far off, a pair of fishmongers are arguing over whether river eels are sleeping or just playing dead in the cold. One of them pokes a fish with a twig. It does not respond. Verdict: dramatic nap. You continue wandering until you hear a loud sneeze from a shadowed archway. A street healer, more robe than person, is huddled over a brazier of herbs, waving a bundle of dried bay leaves like a blessing or a threat. You pause to watch. He notices and beckons. Cleans the lungs, he says, motioning to the smoke, which smells strongly of thyme, peppercorns, and ambition. You pretend to inhale politely, then wave as you back away. The healer nods approvingly, as if you've just passed some invisible test of fortitude. You keep walking. The forum is quieter in winter. Not empty, of course. Rome never truly sleeps, but the political shouting has been replaced by lower-stakes bickering. A group of senators wrapped in heavy wool are arguing about grain tariffs while watching a dog chase its own tail. Every so often, they nod sagely and mutter, "We must act," then go right back to watching the dog. Nearby, a man tries to sell you a calendar tablet, a little wooden board engraved with the coming months. "Imported from Hispania," he whispers, even though it's clearly just repainted from last year. You politely decline. He shrugs and immediately turns to the next passerby. The statue of Janus, god of beginnings and endings, stands at the forum gate, his two faces dusted with frost. Someone has placed a scarf around his neck. It's knitted unevenly and very teal. He wears it well. You step up the shallow stairs of a columned portico, once a bustling law court, now mostly a sun trap. Half a dozen people sit there, soaking up what little light they can. You join them. No one talks. There's a mutual understanding here. Silence is a luxury, especially when paired with sunshine and relative dryness. A boy walks by selling roasted chickpeas in paper cones. You buy one. The cone is made from a torn-up political leaflet, so as you snack, you learn that someone named Lucius really dislikes someone named Gaius. It's oddly satisfying. The chickpeas are hot and salty. Your fingers remember warmth again. You walk on, heading now toward the Insulae, the tall apartment blocks where most of the city's population lives. They're rickety, drafty, and one overly ambitious sneeze away from structural collapse. But they're home, and each one is different. In the alleyways between them, laundry still hangs, frozen stiff like flags of defeat. A girl climbs out a second-story window to rescue a shirt before it cracks in half. She succeeds, just barely. You step into one of the building vestibules, more curious than anything. The stairwell smells like ash and onions. Someone's cooking something in a brazier halfway up the landing. A stew you can't identify but would absolutely eat if invited. Upstairs, a young man is chopping kindling with a kitchen knife, teeth chattering in rhythm. He nods when you pass like this is all perfectly normal. It is. A man with a pot belly and bare feet leans out his window to shout down at someone. His voice echoes across the alley like a cawing crow. You don't speak enough Latin to follow the argument, but you catch the words grapes, mouse, and again. So you assume it's serious. You head back to street level just as a food seller pushes a cart past you. Smoking brazier up front, baskets in the back. She's selling boiled chestnuts and sweet wine thickened with pine resin. You buy a small cup and let the warmth slide down your throat like a velvet rope. It tastes like smoke and sugar and makes your nose run slightly. You thank her. She nods, then yells something at a passing mule cart that makes the mule blush. You wander into a smaller courtyard now, where an old man sits carving chess pieces from bone. His hands are blue from cold but steady. He's missing 3 teeth and humming a song you almost recognize. You ask if you can watch. He shrugs, so you do. He carves a knight's head, gives it a rather smug expression, then holds it up for you to inspect. It looks like someone you don't trust but would still ask for directions. He grins. You ask how long he's been doing this. He taps his chest, then the chessboard. You get the message. Longer than his memory can hold. One of the pieces falls into the brazier. Neither of you move to rescue it. Instead, you sit with him for a while, letting the day slow again. In winter, Rome doesn't gallop. It ambles. Eventually, you stand and stretch. You've still got a little more wandering to do before the light fades. Your cloak smells faintly of chickpeas, smoke, and pine. You'll keep that with you. The streets have started to quiet again. Not with the eerie stillness of dawn, but the contented hush of a city mid-afternoon in winter, when everyone either retreats indoors or leans harder into their routines. You wrap your cloak tighter around you and head toward the southern edge of the city, where the Subura district clings to the slope like laundry on a line. The Subura is a mess, of sounds, of smells, of stories, but it's also Rome at its most alive. And right now, it's where the real winter hustle is happening. You pass a cobbler hammering nails into sandals too thin for this weather, his breath puffing little clouds as he works. A cat watches him from under a wine barrel, tail flicking in slow, skeptical loops. A child offers to sweep your boots for a coin. You oblige. She does a questionable job, but you tip her anyway. Above you, washing lines stretch between buildings like low-strung constellations, sagging slightly with the weight of wet tunics and ambition. A voice yells down from a window, something about missing underclothes. A second voice yells back, "Check the baker's roof." You don't investigate. You round a corner and the scent of garlic and burning bread hits you like a festival. A popina, a sort of Roman fast food joint, is wedged into the base of a brick tenement. Inside, it's dim, warm, and loud. You push the curtain aside and step into a room that smells like meatballs, vinegar, and relief. Every bench is filled. Workers with oil-stained tunics sit elbow to elbow with old men sipping hot wine. You spot a woman counting coins with one hand and feeding a baby with the other. A man gestures for more lentil stew by banging his spoon 3 times against the wall. The cook yells back, "It's cooking." Lentils are not impatient. You squeeze onto a stool and order the daily special. The server, a wiry man with a scar that makes him look permanently unimpressed, brings you a bowl of barley porridge with chopped leeks and a chunk of mystery meat. Tastes adequate. You eat it gratefully. The man beside you offers you half of his fig cake. You thank him. He tells you it's his birthday. You wish him joy, then ask his age. He shrugs and says, "Somewhere between Tiberius and now." You both laugh. As you eat, the door creaks open and a cold gust rushes in, bringing with it a flurry of snow or ash. Hard to tell in this city. Everyone groans. Someone throws a napkin at the door. You step back outside and are surprised to see a traveling storyteller setting up in the square across the way. He wears an absurdly tall hat and is unfurling a painted backdrop depicting Hercules wrestling a donkey. It's unclear whether this is a real myth or just compelling fanfiction. Children begin to gather. One boy carries a dog that's clearly too large for him. A woman leans against a column with a baby on her hip, while a group of teens with wooden flutes try to sneak closer without looking too interested. The storyteller begins. He bellows, "In a time before soup, when the gods still borrowed wine," and you're hooked. His voice echoes down the alleys, bouncing off the bricks like a warm breeze. His tale is ridiculous. Something about Minerva losing a cooking contest to a farmer's wife and vowing to curse all her turnips. But it's told with such gusto, you forget to question it. He ends with a dramatic bow, shouts, "Don't believe me? Ask your grandmother," and passes around a battered bronze bowl for tips. You drop in a coin. The dog barks once in approval. You walk on. A man selling firewood out of a pushcart offers you a bundle. You politely decline, but he insists. "You'll need it tonight," he says. You buy one and suddenly feel like you've acquired treasure. Dry wood is worth more than most coins in a Roman winter. As you carry it through the back alleys, you pass a mural painted on the side of a bathhouse. A faded image of a dolphin carrying a scroll. It's cheerful, slightly absurd, and oddly comforting. Someone has chalked the words "warm thoughts, cold toes" underneath it. You smile. Ahead, you spot a group of men gathered around a low table in a courtyard, playing dice on a blanket of old wax tablets. They argue fiercely about the rules, and one accuses another of loading the bones. The accused replies, "If I had, would I be losing this badly?" The logic is flawless. You keep walking. As you near the edge of Subura, the buildings grow taller, the alleys narrower. You smell boiled cabbage, wet plaster, and something metallic, possibly blood, possibly coins. Rome never lets you be too sure. You hear a rooster crow. It's far too late in the day for that, but you take it as a sign. Climbing a small hill, you find a shrine tucked between 2 buildings, half hidden behind ivy and broken shutters. There's a small alcove with a statue of Vesta, goddess of the hearth. Someone has placed a bowl of chestnuts at her feet. A single clay lamp burns beside her, the flame struggling but steady. You pause. Your fingers are numb from the cold. Your breath curls around your face like a reluctant ghost. but the little flame warms you in a way no brazier could. You touch the statue's base, just for luck. Then you turn and begin your walk back toward the heart of the city. The streets are growing darker, but you know your way now. You dodge puddles, wave at the girl who cleaned your boots, and avoid the cat who clearly owns this entire district. Night will come soon, and with it the cold. But for now, Rome is still pulsing, still breathing, still warm enough to keep moving. You take a shortcut past a row of olive merchants who've just finished covering their amphory for the night, the lids thumping down like slow, sleepy drumbeats. The air is dense with the smell of pressed fruit and tired hands. Someone hums a tune under their breath, off-key, but comforting. Your feet crunch softly over gravel as you veer toward the Aventine Hill. The incline is gentle, and the path here is quieter, less crowded with hawkers and gossip. That's the thing about this part of the city. It belongs more to shadows and secrets. And right now, it's also home to something rare, quiet dignity. At the top, behind a row of old plane trees, stands a temple. It's not one of the grand ones, not marble or gilded. It's small, made of dark stone, with a heavy wooden door bound in bronze and soot stains from years of incense offerings. The temple of Bona Dea, the good goddess. Men aren't usually allowed here. You're only walking by, but the light spilling from its narrow windows glows so softly, you linger a moment anyway. You catch faint chanting, the clinking of ritual cups, and the unmistakable smell of warm wine steeped with herbs and pine resin. This part of Rome, though quieter, isn't immune to the cold. The trees clatter in the breeze, and the torches sputter against the damp air. You pull your cloak tighter again and glance up. Above you, roofs huddle like sleeping dogs, clay tiles layered in uneven teeth. Smoke slips lazily from chimneys, trailing skyward like sleepy prayers. Somewhere, faintly, a woman's voice rises in song, slow, nostalgic, maybe drunk. You can't tell. It drifts down the alley like perfume and vanishes. You spot a man crouched near a brazier, carefully feeding it with tiny twigs and straw. He's wearing layers of fabric that don't match. One sleeve teal, the other russet, and is muttering what might be a recipe or a poem. Possibly both. He sees you, nods once, then continues his muttering. It's getting colder now. You pause at a public fountain, where the water still flows in a steady trickle despite the temperature. A few people huddle nearby, using the stone basin as a gathering place more than a utility. A young woman rinses her hands while telling a joke about a magistrate and a runaway goose. The punchline involves cabbage and shame. Everyone laughs politely. Just behind the fountain, a family unrolls their bedding in the lee of a wall. Father, mother, two small children, all sharing one heavy woolen blanket. The father uses his own cloak to cover the rest. He sees you watching and offers a small smile. Cold tonight, he says. You nod. Always is. He points to the stars. But clear. No rain. That's something. That's always something. Continuing on, you pass a corner where an old man with a lyre plucks at its strings, tuning it with exaggerated seriousness. He stops you and asks if you want to hear the song of the snow god. You didn't know there was a snow god. There isn't, he says. I made him up, but the song's real. You agree. The tune is slow and full of sharp, icy notes. It sounds like teeth chattering. You drop him a coin and walk on before he can ask for feedback. Turning down a narrow street lit by a single oil lamp, you come across one of those small shops that only open after sunset. This one run by a man with 3 fingers and an endless supply of dubious remedies. The door creaks open and he greets you with, "Cold joints? Sad spleen? Bad dreams? I have ointments for each." You politely decline the spleen balm but accept a small cloth pouch he swears is full of warmth crystals. They're just dried beans, but he looks so proud you take them anyway. Farther down, you hear a sudden burst of laughter. A cluster of young people sit on the steps of an old bathhouse, swapping stories, drinking from a shared jug, and roasting chestnuts over a broken brazier. One of them throws a half-burnt nut into the air and tries to catch it in his mouth. He fails. They erupt in mock applause. You pause in the shadows, unseen for a moment, and soak it in, Their joy, their fire, their silliness. It doesn't last, this kind of thing. But here, tonight, it lives. Rome breathes with warmth where it can. You pass by a bakery now, shuttered for the night, but the scent of bread lingers like a ghost. You imagine the heat that must have once filled that oven, the soft flour clouds floating up as loaves were kneaded. Someone has etched a heart into the soot of the door. You keep walking, your feet now retracing familiar paths toward the northern ridge, where the walls of Rome stretch like a protective spine across the land. You find a narrow stairwell between two buildings and take it. At the top is a terrace that overlooks much of the city. From here, it's a mosaic, clay roofs, chimney smoke, torch flickers, shadowed temples, bathhouses steaming faintly under the stars. Rome, the great beast, dozing beneath a velvet sky. You sit for a moment, pulling your cloak around you like armor. Below, you can just make out the sounds of music somewhere near the Subura again, and the clink of pottery. A baby cries, a dog barks back, someone sings off-key and proud. The cold press is close, but you don't mind. Not entirely, because Rome, for all its grime and gossip, knows how to hold its people through a hard night, with heat where it can offer it, with laughter when there's nothing else, and with endless stories, stitched like thread through every brick and step and broken statue. You rise. Your knees crack like old parchment. You chuckle just once. Time to head home. You make your way down the steps, the stones slick with a fine layer of dew, catching the lamplight in patches that shimmer like spilled wine. The wind's picked up just slightly, and it trails behind your ears like a whisper that's forgotten what it meant to say. As you descend into the winding alleys of the Subura again, everything feels just a little softer, quieter, somehow, despite the thrum of the city. Even the usual dogs have stopped their chorus of barks and sniffs. Maybe they're warming their paws under laundry carts. Maybe they've finally caught that one smug cat. You round a corner and stop. Ahead of you, two figures huddle under a half-collapsed awning. One is an older woman wrapped in so many scarves you're not sure where her face begins. The other is a boy, holding a basket filled with cracked pottery and a single turnip. "You lost?" the woman croaks, squinting at you. "Not yet," you say. She smiles. "Then you're doing better than most." You nod and move on. Just before you turn away, the boy calls after you. "Want a shard?" They're lucky. You don't need a shard of broken clay, but you take one anyway. It's warm somehow, as if it's remembered being part of something whole. Your next stop is unplanned. It's a courtyard you've passed 1,000 times. Most days it's just a place for hanging wet tunics and arguing over who borrowed whose broom. But tonight, there's a small gathering. A circle of neighbors sitting around a fire made of snapped olive branches and splinters from a broken cartwheel. They see you and scoot over without a word, making space on the cracked bench. No questions, no nods. Just the soft language of shuffling feet and shared warmth. Someone hands you a cup. It's something hot, brewed from herbs and whatever else they could scrounge. It smells like thyme, regret, and possibly licorice. You sip it. It's terrible, but it's warm. The woman beside you is humming a lullaby, not for a baby, but just because. The man across the fire is sketching on a piece of wood with charcoal, drawing what looks like the moon wearing a helmet. The others sit in silence, wrapped in blankets, eyes half closed. Above, the stars blink lazily between clouds. Rome's sky always feels close, like you could brush it with your knuckles if you stood on tiptoe. As the fire crackles and the cold recedes by inches, someone begins telling a story. A ghost story, of course, because it's that kind of night. It's about a merchant who tried to cheat the gods by baking bread shaped like sacrificial offerings, hoping they'd accept dough instead of doves. He was haunted forever by the smell of baking loaves, but never able to taste them again. The group murmurs in appreciation. "Better than the last one," someone whispers. "Anything's better than the one with the haunted sandal," someone else mutters. You laugh softly and stand to leave, brushing crumbs from your lap. Your legs feel a little heavier now, not from fatigue, but from the quiet weight of comfort of company. As you weave back into the city's belly, You pass a Roman bathhouse still glowing faintly from within. You sneak a look through the open doorway. The steam has settled like a low fog inside, hugging the tile floor. A few figures still linger. Bathers in half-sleep, attendants folding towels, someone snoozing against a warm pipe. Bathhouses weren't just about hygiene. You remember that now. They were meeting places, hangouts, escape hatches from the noise and the dirt. And most importantly, on a night like this, heat. The fire in the hypocaust below rumbles faintly, heating the stone like a hidden dragon. You can feel it just standing nearby, its warmth wrapping around your ankles like a sleepy cat. You don't go in, but you linger, and as you do, you catch a conversation between two bath attendants. One says, "The emperor's probably curled up in a palace of marble tonight, with 10 blankets and a bowl of grapes." The other replies, "And still probably complains that his feet are cold." They both snort in agreement. Royalty, always chilly. Historians still argue whether these bathhouses served the people more for hygiene or for harmony, keeping the social fabric from freezing over in every sense. Either way, they were warm, and that was enough. You take one last deep breath of that eucalyptus-scented steam and head on. By now, your route home is winding. Intentionally so. You're not quite ready to return, are you? You pass a trio of street performers asleep under a makeshift tarp made of banners from some forgotten festival. A tambourine lies beside them, collecting drizzle. One of them snores like a flute. Farther along, you hear the clink of armor. 2 night watchmen pass by, shields slung over their backs, their helmets tucked under their arms. They nod as they go. One yawns so wide you swear you hear his jaw crack. You round a final bend and see a lamplighter, carefully extending a hooked pole to snuff one of the last flames of the night. He moves slowly, reverently, as if tucking the city in. "Cold one," he says without looking. "They all are," you reply. He chuckles. "Not the cold that bothers me. It's the quiet." And just like that, he disappears into the fog. You reach your door finally. The wooden latch creaks as you lift it. Inside, your little world is as you left it. Simple, warmish, and smelling faintly of boiled onions and dreams deferred. You light a lamp, just for a moment, then change your mind and blow it out. Instead, you sit in the dark and listen. There's the distant rustle of straw from the bed, the occasional groan of beams settling, the drip, drip, drip from a leak you've promised to fix for weeks. But more than anything, there's stillness. That kind of stillness you can only earn after walking through Rome at night, letting it whisper its little stories into your bones. The warmth isn't in your hands. It's in your chest. And maybe, just maybe, you're not cold anymore. You wake briefly in the middle of the night, not from a noise, but from an absence of one. Rome, for all its chaos, is rarely silent. But tonight that stillness settles again like a blanket, thick and unexpected. Your eyes flutter open to faint lamplight bouncing off the plaster wall. A shadow, yours, stretches up toward the low ceiling like a question mark with sore knees. You don't move yet. You listen. Somewhere far off, a dog barks once, then thinks better of it. A door creaks down the alley. Someone coughs. But mostly it's just quiet. You shift under your blanket, scratch your ankle, and wonder if it's worth getting up. Of course it is. You're too awake now to roll over and too Roman to waste a good bout of nighttime wandering. So you get up. You relight your little oil lamp. The flame flickers, then steadies, painting the room in soft gold like a sepia dream. You wrap yourself in a cloak, one that smells faintly of barley and last week's stew, and step back out into the street. The moon is out now, low, round, and smug, and its glow silvers every tile, gutter, and grapevine like the gods decided to frost the whole city. You follow no road in particular. You just walk. Your feet lead you to the field of Mars, where drills and speeches usually thunder during the day, but now it lies empty and serene. The statues cast long, solemn shadows. Jupiter with his eagle, Mars holding his sword like he's thinking about using it but probably won't. The field smells of old stone and trampled grass. Somewhere nearby, a fig tree clings to the wall, its bare branches twitching in the wind like it's dreaming of spring. You spot a single figure in the middle of the plaza, A man in faded armor sitting on a bench, helmet beside him, elbows on his knees. He's talking softly to himself. As you draw nearer, he glances up. Couldn't sleep either? You shrug. Too quiet. He nods. Makes you think too much, doesn't it? About everything, you say. And nothing, he adds. Which is worse? He pulls something from his pouch, half a honey date, and offers it wordlessly. You accept, chewing slowly. It sticks to your teeth and your thoughts. This city, he says, is loud when it shouldn't be and silent when you need noise. You both sit for a moment, staring into the darkness as if waiting for something to step out of it. Eventually, you part with a nod. No names exchanged, just warmth in passing. Historians still argue whether Rome's nights were more peaceful than her days or simply better at hiding their chaos. There are scrolls that speak of murders, affairs, stolen olives, and whispered deals conducted in torchlight. But there are also records of music, stargazing, midnight poetry readings, quiet joy tucked between scandals. Tonight feels like one of the better pages. As you leave the field of Mars, the air sharpens. Your breath clouds in front of you, soft and fast. You spot frost beginning to creep over a mosaic of Neptune, dulling his sea-blue beard. You shiver once and keep walking. Ahead, you notice a candle burning in a small niche beside a fountain. A tiny shrine to Mercury. Someone's left him an offering. A coin, a fig, and a note scratched onto a tile shard. You can't read it in the dark, but you imagine it says something like, "Help me get through this week," or "Please don't let my cousin visit." You whisper a silent thanks anyway. Can't hurt. Your stomach growls gently. You laugh under your breath. Midnight hunger, a very Roman affliction. And as if summoned, you round a corner and find a baker's cart. Abandoned, but with one loaf left sitting out, wrapped in cloth against the cold. You glance around. No one. There's a note tucked underneath. For the gods, or whoever's hungriest. You don't take the whole loaf, just a crust. Enough to nibble as you continue on, crumbs trailing behind you like a very lazy comet. The warmth of it, even stale, is heavenly. You pass a large tenement block. Inside one of the units, a woman is singing softly to a crying baby. The tune is wordless, half lullaby, half prayer. You pause, lean against the wall, and listen until the baby quiets. Then comes laughter from an upper floor. Two friends playing dice by candlelight, slapping the floor when the rolls go wrong. A man below mutters something about curses and sleep, but the dice keep clicking. Rome is waking up in waves. Just as you're about to head back to your room, you catch sight of a street artist chalking a mural onto a tavern wall, barely visible in the dark. It's a crude but charming scene of Jupiter and a donkey arguing over wine. The artist looks up and grins. "It's based on a true story," he says. You grin back. "Of course it is." He smudges a bit of chalk with his thumb and keeps going. "Gotta finish before the dew ruins it. Or before the owner wakes up." You wish him luck and walk on. It's nearly dawn now. The sky over Rome is softening, blue mixing with gray like water into wine. The lanterns flicker. The last watchman change shifts. The bread carts begin to roll out, creaking under their loads. And somewhere, deep in the forum, a rooster clears its throat. You take a long breath of that cold, fresh air. You can feel the city stirring beneath your feet like a great beast stretching after a nap. You've wandered through temples and tenements, courts and corners, firelit stories and fig-sweet midnight snacks. And still, the city has more to give. But for now it's time to go home. You retrace your steps. Each alley feels gentler now. Each stone step less cruel. Your hands are still cold, but your chest is full. Your bed creaks as you settle in, pulling the blanket up to your chin. The pillow smells faintly of olive oil and dreams. You exhale long and deep. Outside, Rome exhales with you. The sun isn't up yet, but it will be, soon. And when it rises, the city will roar again. But for a moment longer, it's still. You wake again, this time to voices, not bells. Not loud, but persistent. Through the cracked shutters of your tiny window, soft light seeps in. Rome is yawning into morning. Your limbs protest, still aching from the cold walk, but your curiosity stretches faster than your back. Outside, the street is already dotted with early risers. Two women are sweeping the stoop of a wine shop, tossing insults at each other with sisterly affection. One calls the other as stubborn as a boiled lentil. You don't know what that means exactly, but you like it. You button up your tunic, slip on your sandals, and head out, nose tingling in the brisk air. The breeze smells faintly of pine pitch and bread. Always bread. You follow the voices toward the Tiber, where fishermen are hauling nets out of the shallows. Their laughter rings across the water, as silvery as the fish flapping in their baskets. One of them, a gray-bearded man with arms like amphorae, grins at you and says, "You're up early for a dreamer." You nod. "Couldn't sleep." "City'll do that to you," he says, then yells at his apprentice to stop trying to catch a duck. The ducks are not amused. As you walk along the riverbank, you pass the public baths. Steam rolls from the windows like a lazy ghost, curling into the cold air. You pause, tempted. The thought of warm water, smooth tiles, and echoing chambers is hard to resist. You go in. The changing room is chilly, but there's already a small crowd. Men in various states of undress grumbling about taxes, grain shortages, and who coughed near the olives at the market. You stow your clothes and head for the tepidarium. The heat kisses your skin like a blessing. You sink into the water with a sigh that belongs in a poem. Nearby, a man with eyebrows like broomsticks is reciting Virgil. Another hums tunelessly, slapping water rhythmically. In the caldarium, the steam thickens, turning the tiled room into a glowing cave. You sit beside an old senator who's too tired to be cranky and too relaxed to care who you are. He mutters something about his third wife, or maybe it's his fourth, then nods off. The conversation drifts toward philosophy. "Do you think the gods get cold?" someone asks. "No," someone else replies, "but I bet they argue about who left the hypocaust on." You laugh softly. Rome's warmth isn't just fire and steam. It's found in its jokes, even the terrible ones. Historians still argue whether the baths were primarily for hygiene, socializing, or politics. The answer is probably yes. You've heard of deals struck in the steam room and betrayals planned between rinses. But right now, there's just peace and prune-fingered camaraderie. You step out at last, refreshed and wrinkled. Your towel is slightly damp, probably borrowed when you weren't looking. It smells like lavender and garlic, which is either luxurious or alarming. Outside again, the city has fully woken. The streets bustle with carts, goats, gossip, and shouting. Always the shouting. Two merchants are arguing over the price of dyed wool, indigo, no less. The expensive stuff. A child weaves between them, selling waxed apples from a little tray. The forum is alive today. Senators bustle past in togas, their sandals smacking the marble rhythmically. You spot a group of students reading from wax tablets under a fig tree, their tutor dozing with a quill stuck in his beard. A pickpocket tries to nab a purse from a vendor and gets smacked with a leak for his trouble. It's good to be home. You duck into a bakery you haven't visited in a while. The baker nods, covered in flour and pride. His wife hums as she kneads dough in the corner, and their son offers you a heel of bread still warm from the oven. You bite into it, and it's everything. Chewy, salty, crusty joy. The kind of bite that reminds you food is the original miracle. Someone behind you whispers about a senator caught wearing sandals on the wrong day. Scandalous. Outside, a legionary strolls by, casually polishing his helmet. Kids run behind him pretending to be invaders. One trips, giggles, and throws a handful of leaves at a pigeon, which flaps away in indignation. You walk down an alley you've never noticed before. Narrow, quiet, lined with faded frescoes of olive branches and dolphins. At the end is a small door. No sign. You knock. An old woman opens it. Her face is all wrinkles and welcome. "You're not here for the lark pies, are you?" she asks. "No," you say, "but now I kind of am." She waves you in. It's a shop, or maybe a kitchen, or maybe a shrine to forgotten herbs. Shelves groan under jars of dried things. Thyme, sumac, Tiny onions, even rose hips. Cat sleeps on a mortar. The smell is dizzying. You sit. She makes you tea from something green and mysterious. My grandmother said this brew could stop a bear from charging, she says. Did it? No, but it made the bear very relaxed about the whole thing. You laugh and sip. The tea tastes like moss and safety. You linger, talk about weather, complain about laundry, learn that she once told a censor he smelled like wet marble, and got away with it. Eventually, you thank her and leave a coin on the table. She tucks it under the cat. Back on the main street, you pass a man juggling amphory for coins. One breaks. He curses poetically. The crowd applauds anyway. A flute plays somewhere high above, on a balcony filled with drying tunics and lazy doves. A beggar recites bad poetry for bread. A mime pretends to be a senator stuck in a tax debate. It's oddly accurate. The sun is high now. Rome hums like a satisfied belly after soup. You stop at a fountain and splash your face. The water is cold, pure, ancient. You look up. The sky is as blue as indigo-dyed wool, stretched taut between temple columns and tiled rooftops. You close your eyes and listen again. Not for silence this time, but for life. It's all around you. Rome doesn't just exist. It insists. You wander past the fountain, your fingers still cool and wet, and drift into one of Rome's quieter quarters. A place of shaded courtyards, leaning walls, and whispering fig trees. The noise fades here, softens, as if even the buildings are taking a breath. A laundry line flaps gently overhead. Tunics and cloaks in faded saffron, russet, and teal dance like sleepy ghosts. You pause beneath them, enjoying the scent of sun-dried linen and ash soap. Somewhere nearby, someone is grinding grain. Slow, steady, rhythmic. You pass a stooped woman tossing stale crumbs to pigeons. She's humming a lullaby that you half remember from childhood. She doesn't look at you, but murmurs, "The gods watch the quiet ones." You're not entirely sure if that's a warning or a blessing, so you nod politely and move along. A narrow alley opens into a courtyard tucked between two forgotten temples. The statues here are cracked and moss-bitten, their faces softened by time. You count 3 missing noses and 1 entirely replaced head. It's clearly from a different statue, but no one seems to mind. In the center stands a broken fountain shaped like a lion, its mouth dry, its eyes stubbornly noble. Children play nearby, turning pebbles into soldiers and peonies into catapults. One child pretends to be Emperor Augustus and demands taxes from a snail. You sit on a step and watch. It's the kind of moment that makes you wonder how many emperors once made mud pies before conquering provinces. Maybe all of them. A cat joins you, sleek, golden-eyed, with the self-importance of a senator. It leans against your leg and purrs like a tiny war drum. You scratch its head, and it approves of you for now. The sun shifts. A breeze rolls through the courtyard, carrying the scent of rosemary and roasting garlic. Your stomach rumbles, and the cat gives you a look that says, "Amateur." You wander toward the smell, past open windows where old men argue over dice rolls and debt. You catch a glimpse of painted walls inside. Figs and dolphins again, with a very mischievous-looking satyr peeking from behind a bush. You smirk. Rome has a way of hiding beauty in strange corners, like it's playing a game just for you. You find the source of the smell. A stall wedged between a cobbler and a scroll scribe. A man with a crooked nose and a flawless apron is turning skewers over a clay brazier. Lamb, onions, and what might be dates. You buy one. The first bite is smoky, sweet, and slightly dangerous. The second bite is better. As you chew, a small boy runs past yelling, "The goats have escaped again!" And somewhere in the distance, someone responds, "Not my problem," with impressive cheer. You finish your skewer and head north, where the buildings grow taller and older, their shadows longer, their stonework more serious. You're nearing the city's older spine now, the places Rome has built over and over again, like an argument it refuses to end. You pass under an arch that's seen more than you ever will. Your fingers brush its weathered stone. Tiny flecks of shell are still visible in the marble. You imagine all the hands that touched this spot before yours. Merchants, mothers, soldiers, lovers, all chasing or escaping something. The street curves upward slightly, and you follow it to a small shrine. Just a recessed alcove in a wall, really, but lovingly maintained. A statue of Fortuna stares serenely back at you, holding her cornucopia as if to say, "Life is weird, but generous." Fresh flowers lie at her feet. Someone has left a honey cake. You leave a copper coin. "Just in case," you whisper. Historians still argue whether these little shrines were expressions of true belief or just public performance. But when your roads are uneven and your winters unpredictable, a whispered prayer to luck never hurts. You head east now, following the wind or maybe just your mood. You're not sure anymore. The city keeps folding you in deeper. You pass a street musician playing a lyre with only 5 strings. He's making it work. A woman with ink-stained fingers stops to listen, and they nod at each other in mutual respect. Then she keeps walking, muttering something about terrible meter, but smiling anyway. A legionary stands nearby, watching the street with the calm gaze of someone who's seen too much and still likes people anyway. You nod at him. He nods back. Nothing more is needed. You take a turn you don't remember deciding on and find yourself in a courtyard garden that smells like mint and warm dust. There are benches here, and old men here, and a tortoise. Very old, very smug, moving slowly and without shame. You sit again. Let the hum of the city wash over you. You watch sunlight paint golden squares on the flagstones, shifting like slow mosaics. A woman nearby is sketching. Her parchment flaps in the wind. She curses it, then thanks it for being a better critic than her brother. The tortoise agrees. You stay a while until the air begins to cool and the sun tilts lower. It's hard to explain the quiet of a Roman afternoon. Not silence exactly, but a softening. Like the city exhales. The shadows deepen. The walls glow ochre. Voices drop to a hush. You rise, stretch, and head for the nearest hill. You want to watch the light fall over the rooftops. You're not the only one. Others have gathered at the top. Lovers, loners, loafers. The view is absurd. Columns like ribs, roofs like scales, smoke like incense. Rome, coiled and sprawling, glowing like it just remembered it's eternal. You sit on a slab of stone, its surface smoothed by centuries of similar sitters. You rest your chin in your palm and just breathe. The tortoise, surprisingly, is also here. You nod. Good climb. It blinks. The wind ruffles your hair, smells like olives and endings. You close your eyes and whisper to no one in particular, "Stay like this." Rome doesn't answer, but it doesn't move either. You stay perched on that stone slab until your bones start whispering complaints and the tortoise, incredibly, begins its descent. You take that as a cue. It's time to descend too, to wander once more through Rome's dusky belly before true night settles in. Your path winds downhill now, through lanes steeped in the quiet drama of evening. A mother tucks a sleepy child into her shawl. An old man sharpens a knife for tomorrow's meat. A dog sprawls across a doorstep like it owns the world. And, in this moment, maybe it does. You pass a mural half erased by time and soot. What remains is a sea monster nibbling on a galleon. You grin. You tried. You mutter, like a kind critique to the painter across the centuries. At a bend in the road, you hear music again. Flutes and laughter. You follow it like it's a scent. It leads you to a courtyard festival, small, spontaneous, likely unauthorized. A pair of twin sisters stomp grapes in a wooden vat, while an old man tries to sing through hiccups. He fails spectacularly. The crowd cheers anyway. You're handed a cup of something sweet, purple, and mildly questionable. You sip. Tastes like regrets with a raisin finish. A girl juggles walnuts while reciting Virgil badly. A toothless baker heckles her in rhyming verse. A clay lantern sputters in the corner, casting shadows like dancing beetles across the walls. You lean against a fig tree. The bark is warm, the fruit swollen with sunset sugar. A boy offers you one, just plucked. You bite into it, honeyed, soft, with that tiny crunch of seeds that say, "This tree's been here longer than your entire family line." And he's right. This courtyard fig might predate Julius Caesar's first toga. Rome is like that, old but not done. Historians still argue whether these neighborhood parties were formal celebrations or just excuses to use up soft fruit and out-of-tune instruments. Either way, joy finds a way. Someone nearby begins spinning a tale about a local ghost who only haunts bakers that burn their crusts. Everyone laughs, except one man who glances nervously toward the oven. As the music picks up, the crowd starts to dance. You join in, not because you know the steps, but because everyone else seems to be improvising too. There's clapping, stomping, and a very complicated elbow move that makes you look like a confused goose. No one minds. The night folds into itself like warm dough. The stars peek down, flickering through ancient chimney smoke. You find yourself humming, the tune unfamiliar but welcome. Eventually, the music slows. People begin drifting away, gently, like feathers on wine. You walk out through a crumbling archway, the kind that looks one strong sneeze away from collapse, and turn down a street lit by flickering torches. There are light pools on the ground like spilled honey. You stop at a fountain carved with leaping dolphins, none of which look remotely like real dolphins. Artistic liberty, you suppose. You splash your face with the cool water, and for a moment, Rome smells like rain even though the skies are dry. Further along, a cat darts across your path, clutching what appears to be a stolen sausage. It gives you a look that says, "You saw nothing," and vanishes into the dark. You nod. Never happened. The street widens. You're near a gate now, one of the city's great stone mouths. Guards stand nearby, draped in cloaks the color of crushed mulberries. They nod as you pass, distracted by dice and something that might be a chicken argument. Outside the gate, the road stretches under moonlight like a silver thread unraveling across the countryside. But you're not leaving the city. Not yet. You turn back, re-enter through another arch, and find yourself in a district of sculptors. You can tell because every doorstep has flakes of marble, and half the statues are missing noses, hands, or dignity. You peek into a workshop lit by oil lamps and find a young man chiseling a lion's mane with absurd focus. He hasn't noticed that his tunic is slightly on fire at the hem. You knock on the doorframe. "Hey!" He jumps, then snuffs the flame with his palm, sheepishly muttering thanks. You both share a laugh. "That happens a lot," he admits. "Statues are patient. Fire isn't." You leave him to his granite zoo and continue down a lane paved with uneven stones and one inexplicably perfect hopscotch grid. You hop it, of course. It's harder than it looks. You land unevenly and nearly tumble into a stack of amphorae, which rattle ominously. Someone shouts from inside a tavern. If you break it, you buy it, then laughs, then hiccups, possibly the same guy from earlier. You slip away before responsibility can catch you. Soon you reach a quiet square, nearly empty save for a sleeping donkey and a girl drawing constellations in the dust with a stick. You kneel beside her. "Which one's that?" "Scorpius," she says. "But I gave it a hat." You nod. "Good." He looked cold. She offers you the stick, and you add a tiny star next to her drawing. "That's Bob," you say. "He's new." She giggles. "Welcome, Bob." You leave her to her sky and return to your route. The lamps are fewer now. The voices have dimmed. Rome is yawning. You pass a baker stacking tomorrow's loaves by the oven, and a senator's servant whispering sweet nothings to a laundry maid. A stray dog pads beside you for a while, then veers off toward a discarded apple. The air smells like clay, smoke, and the long exhale of a tired empire. You reach a high stone stair. You climb it slowly, one quiet step at a time, until you emerge onto a terrace overlooking the Tiber. The river reflects the moon like it's trying to be better than it was yesterday. You sit, arms wrapped around your knees, watching the water curve like a poem you can't quite remember. Somewhere, a nightjar sings. You breathe in deep, and the city breathes with you. You whisper, "Still awake?" Rome doesn't answer, but she's listening. You linger on that terrace, letting the breeze roll over you like a silk shawl tugged straight from the Tiber itself. Somewhere far below, a cart clatters over cobblestones. Late delivery, maybe, or a runaway goat. With Rome, both are equally likely. Eventually, your body remembers it's been walking all day and issues a formal complaint in the form of a cramp. You stand, stretch, and creak like a door hinge in need of oil. Time to wander again. The steps you descend are older than some languages. Carved deep by generations of sandals, they feel like ancient waves frozen in motion. You imagine all the Romans who've walked them before you. Merchants, lovers, poets, fugitives. Maybe one who was all four. You land on a quiet lane lined with sleeping workshops. Metal shutters groan in their sleep. A blacksmith's anvil stands outside like a guard dog that forgot to go inside. You pat it gently. Job well done. Further on, a flicker of candlelight peeks from a curtained window. Inside, an old woman is still awake, spinning wool in a rhythm that matches the creak of her chair. You wonder if she's the only one who sees the moon from that angle, from that chair on that street. She hums a tune you don't recognize, but somehow you know the words. You drift past quietly, not wanting to break the spell. Around the corner, a strange, wonderful scent greets you. Lavender, thyme, maybe a hint of roasted garlic. You follow it to a narrow door with a faded sign. Apothecaria Fortunata. The door is ajar. Curious, you push it open. Inside, the air is thick with herbs and mystery. Jars line the walls, clay, glass, some probably cursed. Labels are handwritten in a mix of Latin, Greek, and what might just be doodles. A tiny bell rings somewhere in the back. Moments later, a figure appears. A woman in a saffron robe, hair tied up with what looks like grapevine. She doesn't speak. She just raises one eyebrow as if to say, "Well," you shrug. "Wandering." She nods, as though that's the best possible answer. She hands you a tiny satchel of dried flowers. "For dreams," she says finally. Her voice sounds like cracked parchment and honey. You hand her a coin. She doesn't count it. The exchange is not about value. As you leave, she calls after you, "Don't boil it. Just sleep near it." You nod. Noted. Historians still argue whether Rome's apothecaries were closer to scientists or sorcerers. Judging by that shop, probably both. You pocket the pouch and keep moving. The streets are truly hushed now. Even the taverns have quieted. A bard snores under a wine barrel. A painted mural of Jupiter winks at you with one half-faded eye. You step through a tunnel where water drips rhythmically from above. It echoes like a monk's chant. On the far side, you enter a district that smells strongly of clay and wet linen. The potter's quarter. Even in sleep, the place hums with the ghosts of creation. Half-finished amphorae stand like sentinels. A kiln nearby breathes its last embers. A cat curls up in a bowl meant for figs. You pause at one workshop where a sculpted head sits on a stool, smiling faintly. The artist has captured a moment that never happened, in stone that will last longer than almost any memory. You whisper, "Nice cheekbones," and move on, turning onto a bridge now, one of the smaller ones spanning a sleepy branch of the Tiber. The water below whispers secrets in the language of currents. You stop halfway across, rest your arms on the stone railing, and let the river talk to you. It says nothing new, but it says it gently. You spot a cluster of candles on the far shore, too many to be random, too few to be official. As you approach, you see what they surround. A small shrine tucked into a hollowed wall, barely more than a niche. Inside stands a clay statue of some forgotten deity. Worn down, nose missing, but eyes fierce. Offerings lie at its feet. Figs, coins, a feather, a tiny silver fish. You add your dream satchel. Not forever, just for now. Feels right. And now, back into the city's inner folds. You pass a bathhouse closed for the night. Steam still curls up from the vents like lazy ghosts reluctant to leave. Somewhere inside, water laps gently in marble pools. The Romans were obsessed with baths, not just for hygiene but as social spaces. Business deals, gossip, maybe even declarations of love. All happened with toes in warm water. And sometimes arguments over towel theft. Some things are timeless. Past the bathhouse is a long colonnade. You walk its length, columns on one side, empty sky on the other. The moon hangs low now like it's listening. You reach an open forum. It's utterly still. A statue of a statesman towers above you, finger raised like he's about to scold you for something you haven't done yet. "Relax," you whisper. "I'm just walking." The statue does not respond. You sit at the base of it anyway. The stone is cool, and the silence is thick with unseen history. Here, beneath this exact sky, people once debated life, death, taxes, which god had the best haircut. Here, sandals once shuffled, togas flapped, and someone probably tripped over a runaway chicken. You lie back and look up. Stars peer between the columns, blinking slow and kind. Rome is sleeping, but it dreams loudly. A breeze picks up, scattering a few dry leaves across the plaza. They skitter like mice made of parchment. You close your eyes for just a moment, letting your head rest against the cool stone. And in that second, the centuries collapse. You are in every age of Rome at once. Its beginnings, its blaze, its dust, its future. And yet, you're just you, a traveler, a dreamer, a walker of cold nights and warm stories. You smile. The statue still doesn't reply, but the city does. You stir gently, blinking up at that great stone statesman still frozen mid-lecture. He hasn't moved, of course not. But somehow he feels slightly more approving now. Maybe it's the moonlight hitting his chin at a new angle, or maybe you're just in a generous mood. Your legs are stiff from sitting too long on marble, but you stand and stretch like a cat who's secretly a little dramatic. The night has deepened. Even the breeze has hushed. It's the sacred lull between midnight and dawn, when the city dreams its deepest dreams, uninterrupted. You wander eastward, your sandals brushing against weather-worn stones, and enter a quieter district where statues outnumber people. These are the gardens of the elite, closed off during the day but wide open to night's less judgmental audience. Box hedges twist into labyrinths, and fountains murmur to no one in particular. You pass a statue of Venus mid-swoon and a marble goat who looks suspiciously smug. A pair of swans doze on the edge of a reflecting pool, necks curled like parentheses. You tiptoe past. You've seen what angry swans can do. At one end of the garden stands a small domed pavilion. You duck inside. Inside, it's quiet. No echoes, no breezes, just stone and silence. The domed ceiling is painted with constellations in faded gold, the stars connected by fine brown lines like a child's drawing of the cosmos. A whisper of scent lingers. Rosemary, perhaps, or dried myrrh. You sit on the cold floor and gaze up, tracing the stars with your eyes. The ancient Romans believed the gods walked these constellations like highways in the sky. Jupiter, Venus, Mars, each with their own priorities, feuds, and bad fashion choices. Historians still argue whether these painted ceilings were meant as educational tools or just ancient aesthetic flexes. You suspect both. Romans were never shy about multitasking art and ego. As your eyes adjust, you notice one of the constellations is slightly off, an extra star, a longer line. A mistake? A hidden symbol? Maybe just a bored artist sneaking in a doodle. You smile and add your own interpretation. It's a chicken. The chicken of destiny. Feeling profoundly satisfied, you exit the pavilion and return to the path, which now snakes toward the river once more. The Tiber is still there, dark and murmuring, like an old friend who always repeats themselves but somehow makes it soothing. You reach a low stone wall that overlooks a bend in the river. It's a favorite spot for lovers and philosophers, those eternal rivals. Tonight, it's yours. You lean your elbows on the wall and look down at the inky water. A lone boat glides silently under a nearby arch, its lantern bobbing like a lost star. You imagine who's aboard. A baker heading home, a runaway romantic, a guy who fell asleep in the wrong dock and is just rolling with it now. The boat drifts out of view. You glance behind you and spot a familiar shape, the outline of an insula, a Roman apartment block. These tall, multi-story buildings housed most of the city's residents, often crammed into tiny rooms with questionable plumbing. You approach cautiously. A side door creaks open, and a cat slips out, giving you a dismissive look before disappearing into the night. Inside, a dim hallway leads past curtained archways and locked wooden doors. You peek into one open unit. It's no bigger than a modern pantry, but it's cozy in a survivalist sort of way. Cot, a shelf, a single oil lamp. On the wall, a charcoal sketch of a gladiator with exaggerated muscles and a speech bubble that reads, "I fight for bread." You chuckle. Fan art. Ancient edition. You back out quietly, respectful of its sleeping resident. As you wander onward, you stumble across a tiny market still half-assembled from the day before. A few canvas booths are collapsed but not yet packed. A cabbage rolls by like it's on an existential mission. You pick it up and place it back on a crate. There you go, philosopher cabbage. The wind picks up slightly, ruffling your cloak and carrying a few snippets of distant sound. A lyre, a laugh, a soft clink of amphora against amphora. Someone somewhere is still awake. But it doesn't feel like noise. Feels like heartbeat. Rome is never fully asleep. It just lowers the volume. You step into a narrow alley lined with ivy and clay drainpipes. A laundry line stretches above you with a single tunic left swinging like a flag of surrender. And there, painted faintly on the plaster wall, you spot a bit of graffiti. Lucius was here. He ate all the olives. Simple, honest, timeless. You pass beneath an archway and emerge onto a quiet piazza with a dry fountain in its center. A pigeon roosts in the fountain's lion mouth, snoring softly. Yes, pigeons snore probably. You take a seat on the fountain's edge, running your hand along the cool stone. And then, like a whispered plot twist, you feel the first chill of the approaching dawn. Just a breath of it, but it changes everything. The night is almost done. The dream is thinning. A faint blue peaks at the edges of the horizon, and the stars begin to blink goodbye. You look down at your feet, dusty and tired but content. It's been a long walk through a longer night. You've met statues and shopkeepers, apothecaries and cats. You've weighed shadows and traded stories with cobblestones. And now it's time to let go. You rise, stretch once more, and head back toward wherever home is for tonight. Along the way, you pass a bakery just lighting its oven. A warm scent floats into the street. Yeast, hope, and a little singed optimism. You pause and ask the baker if the bread is ready. He grins. Depends how fast you walk. And with that, you walk a little faster. You round the corner from the bakery, warmth chasing your heels like an eager puppy, and the sky is beginning to blush. A soft lavender that peels back the last of the night. Rome is stirring. Not all at once, of course. This city is far too dramatic for that. It yawns, it stretches, it complains about its joints before stepping into the day. You make your way along a narrow street flanked by shuttered stalls and curling vines. A pair of delivery boys shuffle past carrying baskets of figs, whispering about a dream one of them had where the forum turned into a giant soup bowl. You nod politely. Sounds entirely plausible. You pass a small shrine tucked into a wall alcove, one of the city's many household Laras. Someone's lit a fresh candle in front of the little statue, and there's a broken cookie placed carefully at its feet. A quiet offering, maybe a bribe. Hard to say. Just across the way, you spot a very different kind of shrine. A public bulletin board, painted wood, slightly crooked. Flyers pinned with bronze nails. Most are handwritten. One reads, "Lost one goose, slightly rude. Answers to Marcus." Another advertises a play happening in the Subura district. The title? The Senator's Missing Toga. Comedy. You'd hope. You glance upward as a purple banner catches the early breeze. Perhaps from a nearby temple or a wealthy merchant's balcony. Either way, it ripples like an ancient ribbon dancer welcoming the sun. Gold trim glints. Somewhere, a rooster starts crowing as if he invented mornings. You groan softly. You again. The sound of hooves clatters against paving stones as a patrol of city guards rounds the bend. Their tunics are crisp, their spears straight, and their expressions deeply unimpressed. One yawns. Another scratches at a coin-sized patch of stubble on his chin. A third mutters something about missing breakfast. They march by, leaving behind the faint scent of leather oil and civic obligation. You keep walking. Soon you find yourself in a small, cobbled square where a few early risers have gathered. vendors setting up stalls, a donkey being fed an apple slice, two old men arguing about the weather in Latin and hand gestures. You sit on a low wall beside a fountain shaped like a lion vomiting water. The basin is cracked, but it still flows. You splash your face. It's cold. The kind of cold that announces, yes, we are awake now, whether we like it or not. You turn and notice a woman balancing a massive bundle of laundry on her head, sauntering by like it's a crown. Her sandals flap gently with each step. She hums a tune older than your bones. Behind her, a group of boys kicks a leather ball, occasionally stopping to argue whether Jupiter or Mars would make a better goalkeeper. Historians still argue whether street games in ancient Rome were organized social bonding or just chaotic ankle destruction. Either way, you dodge the ball as it nearly clips your ear. You smile. Still got it. The city's rhythm begins to pick up. A chariot rattles by at a disrespectful speed. A shopkeeper tosses out yesterday's stale bread for the birds, who arrive, of course, in a feathered riot. Somewhere, a curtain flaps open, and a sleepy poet blinks into the morning. He mutters something about dreams tasting like wine and scratches it on a wax tablet. You stroll past an open bakery now fully alive. Steam rising, voices raised, coins clinking. The baker from earlier sees you and tosses a loaf your way. You catch it with both hands. Still warm, he says. Like my patience. You thank him and tear off a hunk, savoring the soft inside and crusty outside like it's the first food you've ever known. It's excellent. Possibly illegal in some parts of the empire. You don't care. You lean against a sun-warmed wall and chew thoughtfully. The city hums around you. This strange, brilliant organism of stone, fire, and human stubbornness. It has survived plagues, floods, emperors, poets, and pigeons. It's loud, messy, unjust, beautiful. Pretends to be asleep when it's not and roars awake before you're ready. But somehow, here in the golden hush of early morning, everything feels aligned, like a page freshly unrolled from a scroll. You make your way toward the hilltops now, just one more climb. The Palatine awaits, its heights slowly lit by the advancing sun. As you reach the top, you pause, chest rising and falling with the climb, legs pleasantly aching. From here, the whole city stretches before you. Forums, aqueducts, villas, temples, alleyways, columns like teeth and rooftops like scales. And in the distance, the glitter of the Tiber, snaking its lazy path through history. You sit in the grass. The breeze is soft now, brushing your hair like a mother waking her child. You chew the rest of your bread. The crust is harder now, but it feels earned. The sky finishes its transformation into full daylight. The stars are gone, the lamplighters are off duty, and the shadows are shallow and honest. Everything is exposed, and somehow that's okay. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth on your face. Your muscles soften. Your thoughts float like olive leaves in slow water. Your breath slows, and as you drift somewhere between sleep and memory, you whisper the same thing Romans have whispered for centuries when the day begins just right. Still standing, the sun rests higher now, casting long amber fingers across the rooftops of a city that's seen everything and forgotten nothing. You lie there a little longer on that soft patch of grass, back pressed gently to the earth, the warmth soaking through your tunic like a slow, thoughtful lullaby. Below you, the sounds of Rome shift into a gentler rhythm. Merchants call out, but quieter now. The fountains babble softly. Even the pigeons seem to flap a little slower, as if trying not to wake someone. Maybe you. The breeze moves again, not cold now, just cool. It brushes your cheek, carries the scent of pine resin and distant olive oil. And for a moment you could swear the city sighs with you. You think of the cold nights, the warm cloaks, the steaming bathhouses, and the candlelit mosaics. How Rome kept its heart beating even in winter. You remember the laughter behind closed doors, the arguments in the forum, the muttered prayers at shrines no bigger than a loaf of bread. And now you feel only calm. Your fingers curl in the grass. Your eyelids grow heavier. The world narrows to the rhythm of your breath, the distant murmur of life continuing just out of reach, and the peace of knowing you are small but safe. in the arms of something ancient. So sleep now. Let the night carry you gently. Let the stones of Rome grow quiet again. And as you drift deeper into stillness, remember, you made it through the cold. You are warm now. You are home.